Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome everyone to the PAC meeting for the town of Quispamsis for Tuesday, June 8th. Item number 2, approval of the agenda. Can I have a motion to approve, please? Darren?
So moved.
Seconder.
John will second.
Thank you. All in favor will vote. With a vote of 6-0, motion carried. Move on to the next item. Disclosures of interest. None being, we'll move on to item 4, approval of previous minutes. Has there been any amendments to the minutes or any adjustments? None being, could I have a motion to approve previous minutes, please? Brent?
So moved.
Brenda?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Motion, can I have a vote for that, please? Motion carried, 6-0. We'll move on to the next item, business arising from previous minutes. Can I have a motion to receive and file, please? Brenda?
So moved.
John?
Second.
Can we have a vote on that, please? Motion carried, 6-0. We'll move on to item 6, unfinished business. None being, we'll move on to new business. Item 7A, 56 Skyview Terrace. Could you please come up and state your name for the record? And Jennifer, can you introduce the item, please? Okay, John, Jennifer's going to introduce the item to the members.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, the landowner at 56 Skyview Terrace is applying for a foundation elevation variance, a 4-meter foundation elevation variance. The lot is 8,690 square meters, and we also will require a hold harmless agreement. Staff have no concerns with this application.
Thank you, Jennifer. For the applicant, you would have received the same information we did in the mail. Is there anything you'd like to add or discuss prior to any members of the PAC having any questions for you?
I just want to add that I did meet with the immediate landowners around me, the one down the hill that may have some issues. I did meet with them. I did meet with another immediate landowner. The other one actually is Jason. He actually works for the town of Quispamsis. He's one of the other adjacent landowners to me as well. I sent them a letter introducing myself, and then he asked them to express to me if they had any concerns with construction equipment or people moving on the street because there's children there. So I told them I was taking steps to just make sure that any contractors that were working for me on the project would be sensitive to the street with the families that live there. Other than that, I have nothing to add, and I'm open to questions.
All right, thank you. Any members of PAC have any questions for the applicant? None being, is there anyone in the audience or online willing to speak for or against this item? Is there anyone online or in the audience willing to speak for or against this item? Third and final time. Is there anyone in the audience or online willing to speak for or against this item? None being, would a member of PAC like to put a motion for or against with terms and conditions, please? John, you're up.
Thank you. Yeah, the PAC would like to approve a 4-meter foundation elevation variance to section 6, F1 of the zoning bylaw 038 for 56 Skyview Terrace, PID 30257-083, subject to the following terms and conditions. 1, the preparation of the hold harmless agreement should be executed prior to the approval of the final inspection of the dwelling. And 2, a building permit is issued prior to construction.
Thank you, John. Can I have a seconder for that? Kendall?
I'll second it.
On the question? None being, can we have a vote for that, please? With that, motion carried on a 6-0 vote. So congratulations. In the next 5 to 7 business days, you have a letter in the mail. Please work with the town to get all your permits and I's dotted and T's crossed, and best of luck. Thank you. You're welcome. We're going to move on to item 7B, approval for construction of a retaining wall and pool on waterfront property of 30 Maple Grove Court, PID 301-87371. Could you please come up to the podium, state your name for the record? And Jennifer will ask you to introduce the topic once the gentleman introduces himself.
Hi, my name is Greg O'Leary.
Thanks, Greg. I'm going to get Jennifer's going to introduce.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Like you said, this is an application that requires PAC approval. It's a waterfront property found at 30 Maple Grove. It is in the R1 zone. It has a lot size of 3,084 square meters. And the applicant would like to put in a retaining wall, 2.3 meter retaining wall, and a pool on the side yard of the dwelling unit. The construction will occur within the 30-meter setback of the watercourse, so therefore a WAWA permit will be a requirement. And notice was sent to properties within 50 meters, and no concerns were received, and staff have no further concerns.
All right, thank you, Jennifer. Mr. O'Leary, you would have received the same package we did in the mail. Anything you'd like to add or discuss prior to members of the PAC or public asking you any questions? Okay. To the town? Okay, thank you. Great. Any questions from members of PAC for the applicant? None being, is there anyone in the audience or online willing to speak for or against this item? Is there anyone in the audience or online willing to speak for or against this item? Third and final time, is there anyone in the audience or online willing to speak for or against this item? None being, would a member of PAC like to put a motion for or against with terms and conditions? Brenda?
I actually had a question. Okay, it was just a quick one. Greg, you're building a building down by the water. Is that a pool house type of thing? Something for your pool that need?
A couple trees, I needed a place to store the wood. Yeah.
Down.
Okay.
Anyway, no, that's all. Thanks.
Would a member of PAC like to put a motion for or against with terms and conditions? Brent?
I'll make the motion that the Planning Advisory Committee approve the development of a retaining wall and installation of an in-ground pool at 30 Maple Grove Court, PID 301-87371, subject to the following terms and conditions. Approval is received from the Department of Environment and Local Government for the proposed works within the 30-meter watercourse buffer zone and file with the town. And 2, a building permit is issued prior to construction.
Can I have a seconder for that, please?
I'll second that.
On the question? None being, can we all vote, please? Motion's carried, 6-0. So in 5 to 7 business days, you have your letter in the mail with your approval. So the best, good luck. Please work with the town, get all your documentation in place, and best of luck with your pool. You're welcome. Item 7C, 168 Vincent Road, PID 303-43545. Could the applicant please come up to the mic and state their name for the record? And we'll have Jennifer introduce the item once you introduce yourself.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, committee members, Rick Turner on behalf of the applicant. Mr. Taylor wasn't able to get here this evening, so he asked if I'd attend in his stead.
Okay, thank you, Rick. Jennifer, can you introduce the item, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is for a setback, front yard setback. It was actually an error on an oversight on the part of staff. The applicant was provided the development permit with a 7.5 meter setback when it should actually be 15 meter setback. So to rectify the situation, I guess we're asking PAC if they would provide a 7.38 meter front yard setback to allow the development to proceed. There are other homes. This is not a precedent-setting matter for the Vincent Road. There are other homes that are at the 7.5 meter setback.
Thank you, Jennifer. Mr. Turner, you would have received the same package in the mail. Anything you'd like to add or talk about prior to members of the PAC or the public asking you a few questions?
There certainly respectfully request support by the committee for the recommendation. He is in agreement with the condition with respect to the driveway. What's there now is just roughed in gravel, so very easy to regrade that to make it a better approach to the Vincent Road.
Thank you. Any members of PAC have any questions for the applicant? None being, is there anyone online or in the audience willing to speak for or against this item? Is there anyone in the audience or online willing to speak for or against this item? Third and final time, is there anyone in the audience or online willing to speak for or against this item? None being, would a member of PAC like to put a motion for or against with terms and conditions? Ken?
I recommend that the Planning Advisory Committee approve the front yard setback of 7.38 meters at 168 Vincent Road, PID 303435445, subject to the following condition. The site, number one, the site must be graded to limit direct drainage onto the road surface.
Thank you, Kendall. Have a seconder on that, Mark?
I'll second that.
On the question? None being, can we all vote, please? Motion carried by a vote of 6-0. In 5 to 7 business days, Rick, you'll have a letter in the mail with your approval. Please work with the town to get all necessary documentation in place and proceed, to clean up that as the recommendations from the PAC. And best of luck. Thank you. Sure.
It'll be in the minutes, yeah.
Sure.
Item 7D, 12 Waters Edge Lane, waterfront development. Can the applicant please come up and state your name for the record, and we'll have that item introduced by Jennifer.
Good evening. My name is Ben Scholten, representing the McTaggs at that property.
Thank you. Jennifer, can you introduce that item, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, we're looking at a waterfront property. It does require PAC approval. This property is looking to construct a fence, and while staff was looking at the orthos, we did notice that the entire area at the waterfront edge had been cleared within the 30-meter buffer, had been cleared of all vegetation. So that was a concern that we had for this application. I have been in conversation with the applicants, and they are working with the Department of Environment, as I understand, in trying to sort out the Wawa permit. A foundation elevation variance was also required for a foundation elevation variance was granted in 2018, and as part of that, we asked for a hold harmless agreement, and we recognized that the hold harmless agreement was not on file. We've done some research for that. We found that it was sort of an internal. We sort of missed it a little bit, and we've rectified that situation, and the papers are ready to be signed now. So other than that, they're trying to build a fence to provide screening in their backyard. Thank you.
Thank you. You would have received the same package on behalf of the applicant. Anything you'd like to add or discuss prior to members of the PAC or public asking you some questions?
As it states, I came in this spring and we were looking at doing some landscaping and putting a privacy fence up between the properties. And that's when it was discovered, as far as the waterfront itself and the 30-meter range, when I went for the Wawa permit, that to put the fence up, that there was some clearing done in 2018. Previous, I think it happened just after the 2018 flood. There was a cleanup of the beach, and vegetation was removed. Since that time, and since I've been involved, I met with, actually it was this morning, with Tammy Savoy McIntosh from the Department of Environment, with the client on site. And we have come to an understanding as far as I am developing a revegetation planting plan for that area using native indigenous species indicative of that part of the waterfront. And they will then approve or add to whatever that plan may be. And we will install it, then they will inspect it, and then approve. So we have been going through those steps. There was just some misunderstanding in prior years, and we're just out to rectify it. It was a very informative, friendly meeting, and we just want to move forward and do what needs to be done in accordance with what they're asking.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Does anyone have any questions for the applicant? None being, is there anyone in the audience or online willing to speak for or against this item? Is there anyone online or in the audience willing to speak for or against this item? Third and final time. Is there anyone online or in the audience willing to speak for or against this item? None being, I have a question, I believe, for Jennifer. If the applicant gets all that documentation and the agreement with the local government, can we proceed with that? This application at that time, or do we have to wait until that agreement's in place? Dwight or Jennifer?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So really it's two separate items in that the authority to have the reinstatement of vegetation and bring that to the requirement of the Department of Environment. They are the authority having jurisdiction. So because the approach has been they reached out and they have started the process. I think what we could do is basically if we could get a copy of the pre-vegetation plan so we could have that on file, and then that's something that we could look at as we do further inspections based on that. So I think in terms of this particular application, it would be prudent basically to approve it subject to us getting a copy of the vegetation plan and it being carried out in accordance with the requirements of the Department of Environment.
Thanks, Dwight. Yeah, they're like two separate items, but you know, they both got to be remedied at some point in time, so, thank you. Would a member of PAC like to put a motion for or against with terms and conditions?
Actually, I do have one question.
Okay, go
Mr.
ahead,
Chairman.
Kendall.
Did the applicant ever have a discussion with the neighbors in regards to the fence? Is there any concerns about the fence?
No, everyone. To have it, actually.
And
They were on board.
the fence it meets the bylaws. It's 2 feet off the property line. All right.
Yeah, we're about 10 feet in from the property line,
Okay.
and we are maintaining the 6-foot height that the town requires. without
And
a
you said the
variance.
neighbor was in favor
Yes.
of the fence?
Yeah,
Okay.
there's the neighbor on that side, we're quite happy to have it. Just
Great.
Privacy
Thanks.
for both lots.
Thank you. Member of PAC, put a motion for or against with terms and conditions. Mr. Bishop?
Yeah, I'll put a motion forward that the Planning Advisory Committee approve the construction of a fence on the waterfront property at 12 Waters Edge Lane, PID 303-27464. The following terms and conditions: watercourse and wetland alteration permit must be obtained prior to the issuance of a building permit, and that the Department of the Environment and local government agreement, I guess, and plans are submitted, approved and submitted as a copy to the town for approval for the 30-meter watercourse buffer zone.
Thank you, Mr. Bishop. Can I have a seconder on that?
John will second.
On the question?
Question,
Oh, go ahead, Brent.
Mr. Chairman, should the home harmless agreement be required to be signed off prior to the issuing of the building permit?
Home harmless? The hold harmless agreement?
Has that not already been taken care of? I thought that Jennifer mentioned that.
Okay, we're good.
But no,
Okay,
yeah.
thank you. Can I have a seconder on that? Oh, John, yeah, on the question, yeah. Can we vote, please? Motion carried with a vote of 6-0. In 5 to 7 business days, you have a letter in the mail with your approval, so please work with the town to have all necessary documentation in place and agreement signed. Thank you and good luck. You're welcome. Going to go to item 7E, tentative subdivision plan, Kingsview, Phase 19. Could the applicant please come up and state your name for the record while Dwight introduces the item? Peter, thanks. Dwight?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the application subdivision the tentative subdivision plan that's before PAC is Kingsview Phase 19. It's proposing to create 12 lots plus a court, public street. There's also a couple of local government services easements that are involved in terms of stormwater management and potentially being able to provide access to the sewer from some additional lots on Squire Drive if it was required. As well as it provides a local government services easement into a vacant property on Squire Drive that will allow subdividing and rear servicing that particular area. So I guess as an overview of the plan, perhaps the best way to approach it, I think most of everything's been covered in my staff report, but just a high-level overview of the information that's in there. If we look at the items that has been accepted or has been already established, one being all the lots are going to be serviced by wells, so a comprehensive water study was done and it's met all its requirements. There's sufficient water of quantity and quality to support the level of development. LPP has already been provided for because it's there's an area at I believe 90 Kingsway Drive that is a detention pond area for stormwater attenuation. That's a large tract of land that was provided to the town. It's already been created, and there's a credit that obviously gets applied to the requirement here. Sanitary sewer service is going to be connection to the municipal system. All that infrastructure is, the mains are in place. There's been some work done in terms of servicing up into the court area. Obviously, videos and air testing and all that stuff would have to be confirmed prior to permits being issued. The two items that I think I would like to bring forward to PAC, and as PAC is aware through the Community Planning Act and subdivision bylaw, part of the process and their consideration in any subdivision plan is to look at the overall street layout, its connectivity, and is it conducive to traffic flow in the area? Does it provide alternate accesses into the area? Those types of things. So there's two things I want to focus on. In this particular one is stormwater management. A small section of the stormwater management on, I believe it's lots 170 and 172 kind of area, as well as that portion from Kingsway Drive down to the abutting parcel home by Hillcrest. The stormwater management plan has that water actually being directed onto the adjacent property, so it doesn't actually make its way into the ditches along Kingsway Drive. The receiving property does not have any ditches or road infrastructure that would receive that, does not have any stormwater management system to receive that, so it's a straight dump of water onto an adjacent property, which is not acceptable at this stage. So that's something that's going to have to be reconsidered and addressed under the stormwater management plan. The other item is with respect to street connectivity. This plan has been before PAC on a couple of occasions. It's been reviewed. Tentative approval has been granted. Development hasn't moved forward. And as PAC is aware, although these plans can come to the staff and they can come to PAC, over time things can change. And when we look at some issues that may have arisen over time that we need to pay more attention to. In this particular case, one of the items that I want PAC to draw their attention to is that this is the only access into this particular area. And subdivision bylaw requires that the maximum distance between accesses is 300 meters. So in this particular area, we've got 3 courts, and there was some concerns that were raised by residents in the area, and that sort of, they all echo this idea of, is there a potential for some kind of connectivity between Kingsway Drive up to Squire Drive? In discussions with engineering and reviewing the plans, there's been no actual submission to the town to say the reason you can't establish that potential connectivity is because of. So we haven't had a profile, we haven't had anything that looks at that to say that it is absolutely impossible to make a connection. So one of the items that I brought in my staff report is the importance, I believe, of looking at possibly connectivity from Kingsway up to Squire. There's also a concern with the lots 71, 72, 171, 172, in terms of how do we actually assign civic numbers to those lots? Like, are they a part of Blenheim Court? Are they a part of Kingsway Drive? Where do we make that differentiation? Usually with civic numbering, there's actual defined point where the street begins and ends, and then you assign a civic number. So in terms of 171, 172, sort of outliers in this overall scheme in terms of being able to assign civic numbers. So from PAC's perspective, I think that's a couple of the items that, as fair review and consideration, that we're looking for your input and feedback in terms of the acceptability of the overall plan without connection, either to Squire Drive. If it comes back that it's just, you just can't do it because grades are excessive and those types of things, and obviously that addresses that item and that we would move forward as the plan is presented. However, I think it's important to actually take some time to look at it to establish the reason why that cannot be done at this stage.
Thank you, Dwight. You would have received the same package in the mail, and is there anything you'd like to add or discuss prior to members of the PAC or public asking a few questions? If you noticed, there was a few concerns from residents on that.
I'm open to questions. I kind of have some information as far as the connectivity and whatnot, where Dwight's asking you folks to make the consideration. I actually just, where I only got this Friday, I took the time yesterday to actually take a look at this myself, and I took some elevation shots, and the grade change from what would be the top of Blenheim Court to Squire Drive is currently at 16%. That'd be a straight line grade with no K values. So like your K value would be your approach into Squire Drive. Also just the fact that it would probably eliminate between 2 and 3 building lots, which just makes it a lot more challenging as a developer to try and make the whole thing work as a whole. So I guess what I would ask, I could provide a formal report to the engineering department on the kind of the grade analysis and what would potentially be a line of sight analysis on Squire, which I don't think is very good either. I'm not super familiar, but I did check them at the appropriate heights, and it's only 82 meters on the longest point of the triangle, and I don't think that's long enough. But I could have someone formally submit that to the town. I guess my question would be if we could keep the plan as it is today, and if it came back that we could possibly change the design and make a connection to Squire Drive, at that point we would come back to PAC. My only reason for this is I submit the application to PAC March 23rd, and we're here on June 9th today, I think. 8th, sorry. So if we have to get a report done, reviewed, and then wait to come back again, I'm just afraid that most of the construction season is going to be finished. So I just ask that you guys consider that, please, before making a motion.
Okay, thank you. Any members of PAC have any questions for the applicant? Darren?
I have a question, Mr. Chair, through you to Dwight. Dwight, so future development coming, down into the Hillcrest Holdings Limited. I do see a space on cobblestone. So is there possibly in the future able to be a connection through down Blayham and then over onto cobblestone? Is that, or am I just seeing that space is not an actual street, future street?
So through you, Mr. Chair, to Mr. Bishop's question, what's being referred to is Cobblestone Drive. You have its connection with Squire at the top, and you have an access at the bottom from Greystone into this vacant property. Somewhere about the middle, somewhere around 31, maybe 35, where the cursor is right now, there's a vacant lot that's owned by the applicant. So that's a residential lot. The other thing with that is just looking at the contours. I believe it drops off significantly from the back into that particular area. Now it may be just a small portion of it, so there may be it may be just come off and drop, but overall you may get the grade that make that connectivity. again, through you, Mr. Chair, to the applicant, if that's something that they're willing to look at to provide an alternate access into that particular area for future development, then obviously planning, we're open to that as part of the overall review. Just one other comment through you, Mr. Chair, to the applicant, his request in terms of to move forward with the plan. So we can take, from a planning perspective, we can take PAC's recommendations, and if the developer wishes to look at it in terms of phasing, or if there's certain portions of it that we want to consider, that's an option as well too. So if there's certain lots on the lower end or within the area that may not be affected by the overall development, then we can get access off Kingsway and temporary area. That's something that we can look at too, so at least a portion of it can be developed. So until we have that plan or that report back.
Thank you, Dwight. Any wanna?
No, nothing to add. Thank you.
Okay.
I don't actually own the lot on Cobblestone Drive. A corporation owned by my father does. But overall, I think we work together quite a lot. It's certainly something that we could try and consider in whatever bit of a traffic study we try and do. I don't think the grades are good there necessarily either, but it's certainly something we could all look at together.
Thank you. Any other questions for the applicant? Brenda?
A couple of quick questions. If it's built as you designed it, and the lot number 166 and 165 that faces on Squire, is there quite a bit of fill that would have to go in there for the establishment of buildings? Does it come? Okay.
So maybe.
Okay, and my other question is, if Kingsway comes down there, do you know what development is going to happen, plans on the Hillcrest Holding property? Would that be Kingsway come down and go down through there? Because this is, to me, is not a court. You know, court, you would assume you can't go anywhere else, just out and back again. So I don't know, maybe you need a different name. Sorry, what? Yeah, and well, lot number 172 and 171, the name of that, unless it goes into that other property, is not a court. It's a street or some sort. It's my opinion. I could be totally out in left field.
There's a good chance that you're right. To be totally
Just,
and I'm not.
yeah, okay.
I just told them.
Dwight, do you know if there's any vision of plans for that property, so you would know what streets are going through there?
To my knowledge, there's been nothing formally or even conceptually submitted at this stage for the Hillcrest Holdings property. Part of the challenge moving forward in that particular area is this phase that you see under this tentative plan. To my knowledge, that would probably be the extent of what can be serviced by sewer, because once you go into the Hillcrest Holdings property, it starts to drop off. So it's gonna have to look at how is that property gonna be serviced, either by extension of the sewer services into that particular area, or if not, then you're looking at obviously going to 1 acre lots. And from a planning perspective, given the location of that area, being sort of in a, I wouldn't say it's center of town, but it's an ideal location for increasing the amount of the density that you can get in there versus 1 acre lots to having 1/4 acre lots serviced by sewer. You're probably going to see the develop coming in from sort of Carlton Drive, that particular area, and working its way up. So again, it may be some time before we see that particular area developed. But again, it goes back to all looking at the grades, looking at the current depths of the infrastructure that's in there and how all that ties together. But at this particular time, there's nothing that I've received sort of even conceptually to see how that's going to be tied together and connected to municipal services. Again, my 18 years here, I haven't seen anything. There may have been something, prior to that looked at it as being 1 acre, but at this stage we would be looking at the highest density we could probably get in there in terms of infill, just because of the area and the viability of it, given its close proximity to the amenities, Q-Plex, the highway, those types of things. So it's going to be probably a ways out, some challenges.
Okay. All right.
Thank you, Brenda. Any other questions for the applicant? Is it Brent?
Mr. Chairman, more so for Dwight. Dwight, if Hillcrest Holdings expands, we take Blenheim Court towards the river, the way Kingsway approaches that street, is that going to be an issue? Because you had mentioned lot 172, 171 with regards to civic addressing. So how do we address that tonight, if we can, instead of have to deal with it further down the road? Is it the way Kingsway approaches the court, or?
It's sort of looking at some distinguishing point that would actually make the break clearer. Right now, it looks like Blenheim Court extends all the way down, but in essence, it should stop probably somewhere at the I think it's 170, maybe lot 170 area. So in that particular area, that would be Blenheim Court, and then maybe looking at the rest of that particular area becoming Kingsway Drive. But it's something that we'll have to look at and work with the surveyors, and then work obviously with GIS and those to make sure that we get that distinguishing feature.
Thanks, Dwight. Yeah.
It's really those two lots, because the lot that fronts both the existing Kingsway and then the future Blenheim on the corner, I think it's 165 maybe, that could be accessed off Kingsway Drive already, so that's not a concern.
Thank you, Dwight. Any further questions for the applicant? None being, is there anyone online or in the audience willing to speak for or against this item? Is there anyone in the audience or online willing to speak for or against this item? Third and final time, is there anyone online or in the audience willing to speak for or against this item? None being. We did have a few emails of concern with that. I'm not sure if Mr. Donovan, if you would have saw those.
Mention it to him just to make sure that he's being kind of extra careful, because coming down the hill, it's fairly steep going around the turn, so you can kind of pick up speed pretty quickly, so.
All right, okay, thanks. Dwight, anything you want to talk about any of those emails?
Yeah, just as I mentioned prior, they were mainly about looking at additional access, or so rather than having 12 additional lots and that increases traffic, everything going, and ingress egress on Kingsway Drive, requesting basically that we would look at providing an alternate access. So that's why I think it's important just to explore it. So as I've mentioned, if it comes back and we have something that concretely says, here's the grades and here's the challenges, and if it's going to work or not, so at least we can address that from a planning perspective. I think it's important. And then the other one was with respect to the stormwater, which I've mentioned, flowing onto Hillcrest property, and making sure that in the future that there's the elevation changes and so much that it's going to create problems in terms of access, but just the lay of the land is going to be a transition into Hillcrest Holdings, basically.
Thank you, Dwight. And we are we are approving a tentative plan too, so that's the key thing too, right? That work can be done and changed at the later date if required.
Yeah, so through you, Mr. Chair, to PAC. So in my staff report, I've made some recommendations, and the first part is obviously recognizing the need for some variances, and those have been granted in the past. They're not of a concern because those lots have sufficient area to support the level of development. My recommendation number 2 is basically for PAC to consider whether they wish to accept the plan as is, or if they would like to have just some further information in terms of a possible connection as part of this process, mainly.
Thank you, Dwight. Would a member of PAC like to put a motion for or against with terms and conditions, please? Mr. Bishop?
I'd like to put a motion forward that PAC grant a lot with variance for lot 161 for a 1.94 meter, lot 162 for a 1.46 meter, lot 164 for a 3.00 meter, lot 167 for a 3.00 meter, lot 168 for a 1.42 meter, and lot 170 for a 1.5 meter, lot 177 for a 1.5 meter, variances, recognizing that these may change if a revised street layout is considered. 2, changes to the proposed street layout to examine the street connection to Squire Drive and addressing the civic numbering concerns associated with 171 and 172 be looked at with the developer a little closer, just to see if there's anything that can be done there, or future connections down the road in from other streets. Possible revised plan may be required, but that's not does not have to be taken into consideration at this moment. 3, PAC accept the tentative plan as submitted. A line of sight analysis for lot 166 may be required. 4, LPP obligations to be satisfied through dedicated of 1,691 square meters of land, those being from PIDs 252-973 and 302-68429. And number 5, stormwater management plan be revisited, street grades 8%, which with ditches versus stormwater systems as per the requirements of the subdivision bylaw, and addressing ditches being directed to the Hillcrest Holdings property, limited property.
Thank you, Darren. Can I have a seconder on that?
John will second.
On the question? Could we please vote? Thank you. Thank you. Motion carried by a 6-0 vote, so best of luck. Please work with the town to address all the issues of concern and with the neighbors and the kids in the area. Please talk to your truck drivers about driving in there. Key is always working with the local town and the people in the area to make sure, you know, development succeeds, and I think they'll be happy too if all these conditions can be met. And see if you can look at that alternate entrance, either up above or below. I think that helps the congestion of the traffic and helps ease the pain of, you know, traffic speeding through those areas. And there's some large areas that have concerns with that. So with that being, best of luck in 5 to 7 business days. You have a letter in the mail. You're welcome. Don't know what happened there. Let's see. Give me 1 second. Item 7F. Tentative plan for Nightingale Lane. Could the applicant please come up and state their name for the record?
Hi, my name is Darrell Brown, but I go by Bob.
Okay.
So I'm filling in for the O'Coins tonight because they're away.
Okay.
They got called away. So I know Dwight's been working on this issue and working hard on this one too, to try to get it moving along. And I personally am going to build a house there. I guess Peter's going to do the hard work.
Okay.
I'm just going to look at it. So I really would like Dwight to explain this because I'm not really that close to it, if he wouldn't mind.
We're gonna have Dwight talk about it, then we'll maybe open it up if there's any questions, if you can answer them, and
Okay.
we'll go from there. So Dwight, can you please introduce the item, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, to the PAC. First thing I'd like to say it's been a sort of joint effort between Jennifer and I. Jennifer's been working with the O'Coins as well in terms of the initial stages, and then we've got it to the stage where we need to move forward in terms of PAC, and the next will be the council. So the reason this plan's before PAC tonight is because it's a straightforward 2-lot subdivision off Nightingale Lane. The lots actually front Nightingale Lane, which is a public street. The lot sizes meet the requirements of the zoning bylaw, and in terms of lot widths and lot depths, it all complies with the requirements of the zoning bylaw in terms of establishing the lots. So the only reason it's before PAC tonight is because the applicants have decided that they would like to work with the town and provide the town with land for public purposes. So the strip of land for public purposes that's being offered is along the rear of their property, adjacent to the CN rail corridor. Adjacent to the O'Coin property on the back of the lots on Nightingale Lane, we have land for public purposes currently that was provided as part of the Fernwood development, and it's part of a stormwater sort of management area, as well as hopefully in the future just a very natural trail that will provide us access into the Mud Lake area. So we're not looking at in the future a full-blown trail with crusher run or anything, but just a natural footpath basically. So this is a sort of a first step to getting the necessary lands to make the connection back towards Quispamsis Road in that particular area. So we're very excited and pleased that the O'Coins were like, yeah, sure, we'd like to provide the land rather than going cash in lieu. And we've been working with them to get this particular area. So they're dedicating enough land to meet the requirements of the particular property, as well as through our land for public purposes reserves, we have funds that can assist in acquiring the rest of the land, because the amount that's required obviously is in excess of what's needed for these particular 2 parcels. What's needed is basically 288 square meters, and we're looking at I think in the order of like 400 plus. So we've been working with them, and we're at the stage now where we need basically PAC to review it and make recommendations as to whether they believe that it's in keeping with the intent of the subdivision bylaw and the intent of the land for public purpose policies in terms of providing access to other land for public purposes.
Thank you, Dwight, for that. Anything you'd like to add or talk about prior to any of the PAC members asking you questions or members of the public? Okay, perfect. Anyone have any questions for the applicant or Dwight on this? Is there anyone online or in the audience willing to speak for or against this item? Is there anyone in the audience or online willing to speak for or against this item? Third and final time, is there anyone online or in the audience willing to speak for or against this item? None being, would a member of PAC like to put a motion for or against terms and conditions, please? Brent?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make the motion that town PAC recommend to the town of Quispamsis that land of public purposes of 488 square meters at the rear of PID 30004048 be accepted.
Thank you. Can I have a seconder on that? Kendall,
I'll second it.
on the question? None being, can we please vote, please? Thank you. Motion carried for 6-0. So they'll have a letter in the mail in 5 to 7 business days. And thank the O'Coins and yourself for working with the town to come up with a solution that satisfies all parties. It's great news. So best of luck. We'll move on to item 8A. Can I have a motion to receive and file, please?
So moved.
John, seconder?
I'll second
Brenda,
that.
thank you. Can we have a vote for that, please? Motion carried. Item 9, adjournment. Can I have a motion to adjourn? Mr. Bishop?
So moved.
Seconder on that? Someone, seconder?
John.
John, second. Thank you. Motion carried. Meeting adjourned. Thank you very much.